The Bible commanded Israel to destroy the Canaanites completely. For thousands of years, historians assumed they had been wiped out. Then scientists extracted DNA from 3,700-year-old bones buried in Lebanon and found something nobody expected. The Canaanites never disappeared. They are still here. Canaan occupies a central place in the oldest stories of the Bible. Genesis describes Abraham passing through the land of the Canaanites, a territory already divided among powerful city-states like Sidon, Tyre, Megiddo, Hazor, and Jericho. These cities flourished along the eastern Mediterranean, controlling trade routes and shaping the cultural map of the ancient Levant. Yet the biblical narrative casts the Canaanites as a people set apart for destruction. Deuteronomy 7:1-2 commands the Israelites to utterly destroy the 7 nations inhabiting the land, including the Canaanites, forbidding alliances or marriages with them. Later in Deuteronomy 20:17, the language is even more severe. It calls for the complete eradication of Canaanite cities. This command has fueled centuries of debate over its historical and moral implications. Despite their fate in Scripture, the Canaanites left a lasting mark on civilization. They are credited with developing the world's first alphabet, a writing system that would eventually give rise to Greek, Latin, and the scripts used across the Western world. Their city-states became launching points for Phoenician trade and culture, spreading ideas and technology from Egypt to Cyprus and beyond. Archaeological evidence from these sites reveals complex societies with monumental architecture, international trade, and religious traditions that influenced later cultures. But the question remains, did the Canaanites truly vanish? Or did their story continue in ways that the ancient texts never recorded? The search for answers moves beyond Scripture, demanding evidence from the earth itself. In 2017, a team led by geneticist Mark Haber set out to answer a question that had lingered for centuries. Could the fate of the Canaanites be traced in their bones? The breakthrough began in Sidon on the Lebanese coast, where archaeologists uncovered a burial pit dating back nearly 3,700 years. From these ancient remains, researchers extracted fragments of the petrous bone, the dense part of the skull that is known for its ability to preserve DNA in harsh climates. This choice proved critical. In the controlled environment of the Wellcome Trust Sanger Institute, every precaution was taken. Clean room protocols, silica-based extraction, and double-indexed libraries minimized contamination and preserved the fragile genetic material. The team managed to recover whole genome sequences from 5 Bronze Age individuals. Each genome was compared against a panel of 99 modern Lebanese volunteers, allowing for direct analysis of genetic continuity over thousands of years. The sequencing process involved high-resolution techniques, strict authentication, and computational modeling to ensure the results could withstand scientific scrutiny. When the data came in, Haber and his colleagues were stunned. The genetic signal from the ancient Sidon burials was not only clear, it was strikingly similar to that of modern Lebanese. Haber later said it was surprising to see such huge continuity from the Bronze Age to the present day. For the first time, the bones of the Canaanites offered a direct genetic link across millennia, challenging assumptions about their disappearance and setting the stage for a new understanding of ancestry in the Levant. Geneticists set out to answer a question that had lingered for centuries. Who were the Canaanites biologically? The whole genome sequences from Sidon, dated to the Middle Bronze Age, revealed a population built from 2 main ancestral sources. Around 60% of their DNA traced back to local Neolithic farmers, descendants of the earliest agriculturalists who settled the Levant nearly 10,000 years ago. These were the people who first domesticated wheat and barley, shaping the land long before the rise of city-states. The remaining 40% came from migrants linked to the Zagros Mountains in what is now Iran. This eastern component arrived during the 3rd millennium BCE, likely carried by groups moving west during the Akkadian period. Archaeological finds, including new metalworking techniques and imported ceramics, mirror this genetic influx, tying together the threads of cultural and biological exchange. Across the expanded 2023 dataset, this dual source model held remarkably steady. Whether in coastal Sidon or inland Hazor, Bronze Age Canaanites formed a tight genetic cluster, showing little internal division. The only notable exceptions surfaced at Megiddo, where a handful of individuals carried a higher proportion of Caucasus-related ancestry, pointing to short-lived contacts with northern or Anatolian groups. This regional homogeneity means that for much of the Bronze Age, the Canaanites were not a patchwork of isolated tribes, but a population connected by deep shared ancestry. Their genetic profile became the baseline against which later changes would be measured, providing a reference point for testing claims of destruction or disappearance in the centuries that followed. Excavation trenches at Sidon, Tyre, and Megiddo reveal a pattern that stands in stark contrast to the biblical command for total destruction. Layer by layer, the earth preserves no trace of a region-wide catastrophe. In Sidon, occupation continues from the early Bronze Age through the Iron Age, with no burn layer or abrupt gap to signal a population collapse. Tyre's archaeological record follows the same trajectory. Fortified walls and harbor installations show expansion, not obliteration, across the centuries when the conquest is said to have occurred. At Megiddo, the occupational sequence is complex but uninterrupted. Isolated signs of conflict appear, yet the city's life endures, its streets rebuilt again and again. Field archaeologists point to the absence of any pan-Levantine destruction horizon. Even at Hazor, where a fire event around 1200 BCE left a dramatic scar, the site was reoccupied within a generation. No evidence links this localized destruction to a systematic campaign against the Canaanites. Instead, radiocarbon dating and pottery sequences show urban resilience and adaptation, not erasure. Genetic data reinforce these findings. Y chromosome haplogroups, particularly J1 and J2, remain stable across the Bronze to Iron Age transition. The same lineages persist in both ancient and modern samples, indicating demographic continuity rather than a replacement of peoples. The combined weight of stratigraphy and genomics challenges the literal reading of biblical annihilation. The Canaanites were not wiped out. Their cities and their genes endured, quietly contradicting the story of total destruction. No modern population carries the Bronze Age Canaanite genetic signature in its original undiluted form. The ancient genomes from Sidon and surrounding sites form a distinct cluster, tightly grouped, but now absent from any living group. Over the past 3 millennia, the Levant has seen repeated waves of newcomers: Assyrians, Persians, Greeks, Romans, Arabs, and Ottomans. Each arrival brought new genetic material, blending with the descendants of the Canaanites and reshaping the region's DNA profile. Today, the genetic legacy of the Canaanites survives not as a perfect match, but as a major component woven into the ancestry of millions. Modern Lebanese retain the highest proportion, with studies consistently finding that about 90% of their genome can be traced to Bronze Age forebears. Jewish and Arabic-speaking populations across the Levant also carry substantial Canaanite ancestry, typically around 50% of their genomes. These figures are the product of formal admixture modeling, drawing on ancient reference panels and modern datasets from across Lebanon, Israel, Palestine, Syria, and Jordan. Yet the original Canaanite cluster has been diluted by centuries of admixture. The result is a paradox. Half the DNA of many people in this region descends from the very population described in biblical texts as destroyed, but no living group matches the ancient profile exactly. The Canaanites were not wiped out. They were absorbed, their genetic legacy surviving through dilution, not disappearance. Sidon's skyline has changed countless times, but its roots stretch back more than 6,000 years. Archaeologists have traced an unbroken sequence of settlement beneath its modern streets, each layer built directly atop the last. This continuity is not just an accident of geography or commerce. It is a living thread connecting today's city to the people who first carved out a harbor on this rocky coast. In the words of a Levantine cultural commentator, Sidon is not a relic but a living organism, shaped by millennia of adaptation and resilience. The legacy of the Canaanites runs deeper than stone walls or ancient graves. Their script, first scratched onto clay and ivory, became the Phoenician alphabet, the world's first true alphabetic system. From the Levant, This script traveled with seafarers to Cyprus, North Africa, and eventually to Greece and Rome. Every Western alphabet, from Latin to Cyrillic, carries the imprint of that original Canaanite invention. The story of writing itself begins with these characters, passed from hand to hand across the Mediterranean. Cultural memory also flows through language, ritual, and the patterns of daily life. The Phoenician traders who founded Carthage carried Canaanite customs across the sea, leaving traces in Punic temples and North African place names. Even as labels changed, Canaanite to Phoenician, Phoenician to Carthaginian, the core of their identity endured. The genetic research only deepens this sense of connection. The DNA of ancient Sidon lives on in modern Lebanese, woven into the ancestry of families who still call this coast home. In the end, the Canaanite story is not one of extinction, but of survival, etched into script, city, and genome alike. Genetic evidence now reveals that over 90% of modern Lebanese ancestry traces back to the ancient Canaanites, disproving biblical claims of total destruction. Yet the original Canaanite genome exists nowhere in pure form. Civilization endures, but identity evolves. In DNA, as in history, erasure is rarely absolute.